you. Hi, everybody. It's a real, can you all hear me? Yeah, good, okay. It's a real pleasure to be here, and I've really enjoyed the talk so far. Very inspiring. We don't get to see each other's talks beforehand, but I think there's quite a lot of commonality, and I'm probably going to talk about some of the things that have already emerged today, so that'll be interesting. So I'm Georgia Rakusen. I'm Design Research Lead at a company called ConsenSys, and I'm here today to talk about Web3, how blockchain will change the way we interact with one another. Before I begin, I'd just like a show of hands, please, of who has heard of blockchain. Okay, and if you could keep your hands up if you know how it works. Okay, cool. So I'm not going to solve that problem for you today, although I am going to make a small attempt at it, really to try and explain some of the core attributes of it. And this talk is about ideas as well. It's not so much, I'm not going to try and evangelize blockchain too much, but I am going to talk about what is actually going on in the industry right now and how it can benefit, and also what role design has to play in that as well. So to begin, I want you to imagine a future where we can trust what we read, where we own our own data, where we can monetize that data if we want to, where power, authority, and wealth is more equally distributed, where we collaborate in new and exciting ways on a global scale, which the world hasn't yet seen before. This is a future that many organizations are building towards right now. So in January 2009, shortly after the 2008 financial crisis, there's a reason that this was the case, a mysterious person or group of individuals known as Satoshi Nakamoto mined the first Bitcoin. Bitcoin is a peer-to-peer digital currency with no centralized body, so no one company or entity controls it. Bitcoin is world famous now, and probably most of you have heard of it, but its infamy in mainstream news is actually a diversion from the very powerful technology that underlies it. And my talk is not at all about Bitcoin or any cryptocurrencies. It's about the power of this new technology to transform our interactions with one another. So what is a blockchain? I'm going to give a very simple, what I hope is a simple description of blockchain, not going into too much technical detail, so you can get a sense of what benefits it can provide. So, first of all, I want you to think of a network of people or players, actors in this network. They all share data, and every person in the system has an identical copy of that data. All the copies match. There are a series of rules to how people can make changes to the data. By being in the system, you agree to those rules. Participation is cooperation. So when a change is made to the data, abiding by the rules, all the individuals in the system verify the change, which means that everyone has a new record of the data, as well as a historical copy of all the previous changes that were made, and by who. There's integrity. So if one individual in the system tries to make a change that disagrees with the rules, or tries to edit some historical data, then that change is not verified by the other individuals because the data doesn't match. And that means that the data across the network is not changed. It remains intact, and that individual either has to leave the system or they correct their copy of the data. Okay, boring bit over with. So, blockchain, it allows us to trust. It allows us to trust one another without a third party, without a middleman to validate the information for us. And every player has a unique signature so that we know who made the change. It's transparent. We can see what's going on in the network and everything that's happened before. It's immutable. It can't be altered without the majority agreeing. And it's distributed so that everyone has equal power within the system. There's no one organization or body that is responsible or accountable. It's censorship-proof because of its immutable and distributed nature. So there's no one actor that can shut it down or control who sees what. So these are some of the core attributes of blockchain and of Web 3.0. What I've described here is really very surface level detail of blockchain. There's plenty more complexity to dive into. And if you really want to, we can talk about that over lunch. But what I really want to do is illustrate how these attributes differ greatly from our current system of Web 2.0. So let's compare what we've just seen to a more prevalent centralized system, the systems we know and love very well. Imagine a system, it's not very hard to do, where currently most of the ways we interact with one another is through a third party. That third party is a bank, keeping a ledger of who has what amount in their account and what transactions have been made. It's a government that controls who can be a citizen, rights, taxes, and regulation. It's a technology platform that keeps us connected. And it's a media publisher that decides what information we see. This is Web 2.0 now. These Web 2.0 centralized digital systems retain power. They decide what we can see and what we can't, what information we're allowed to access. They hoard and then sometimes abuse our data. They use power to crush competition, and those other services that don't get a say could actually be better for us. They lobby governments. They design intentionally addictive experiences to manipulate our behaviors in order for a few people to make a lot of money. So this is Google's ad revenue from, you can see it's plotting from 2001 to 2018. And in 2018, they made more than $116 billion in ad revenue alone. The internet ad revenue model is the #1 driver of decisions made on the internet by these centralized companies. It's the driver of clickbait, and it drives decisions about what content people should be looking at. The money they make from us is our usage of their centralized platforms, giving them our data, being their products. Ironically, the access of information that these companies has provided to us has shone a light on their bad practices, and the veil has been lifted. And just briefly, if we look at the wider context of what's going on in the world right now, we are experiencing a crisis of legitimacy at the moment. There's lack of trust in our institutions, our financial organizations, our governments, newspapers, and authority figures, our CEOs. Yet we are beholden to centralized organizations for lack of an alternative. We're siloed by these companies and by nation states whose own infighting prevents us from solving some of the biggest challenges humanity is facing right now. The growth of divisiveness, wealth inequality, the threat of war, and climate change. So Web 1 and 2 have served us well and transformed society, but we've outgrown that technology, and certain actors have learned how to wield their power in a way that isn't healthy. So people are treated like products, personal data is abused, which leads to exploitation. Exploitation and addiction is value for these companies. Web 3.0 gives data and data ownership back to the individual. It allows for self-sovereignty and intentional sharing. I would even go so far as to say that Web 3.0 is a user-centric approach to people on the web. It will create new business models where there is more transparency and where the usual definition of users and products is blurred. People can own parts of anything that they engage with. Participation is cooperation. So where do designers have opportunities to shift the balance of power between the users and products? And what should that relationship look like? So at ConsenSys, we build products on the Ethereum blockchain. We have 1,000 employees working across 50 or so decentralized projects. The company's global and entirely remote. We have around 60 designers working at the company designing new experiences for Web 3.0. And in the media, you'll hear the word blockchain being shoehorned into every possible product because it's one of the big buzzwords at the moment. But I want to show you 3, hopefully simple, tangible examples that we are building right now so you can get a sense of what's possible. The first project I want to talk about is Civil. Civil is rebuilding the journalism industry on a platform governed by trust and transparency. We all know fake news is a problem, We can see how the news industry relies on the ad revenue model to survive, and that means that many publications are thinking about revenue instead of truth. Not only that, but then we've got algorithms counting clicks, dictating the type of news that we see. And we can see the effects of this in political movements in the last decade. Only 34% of Americans say that they can trust the news. Communities have been polarized, resulting in massive distrust in institutions and the media. What Civil aims to do is reward ethical behavior, compensate content creators fairly, and speak truth to power. So this is what's being built. We're creating a registry of newsrooms on the blockchain. If a publication wants to join the registry, they must sign the Constitution. The Constitution was created by journalism professionals, free speech advocates, and the community, all the players, the actors in the network. So when you visit a publication on the Civil network, you know that they're beholden to the code of conduct. They're agreeing to be held accountable by the community, who all have a stake in the platform. The community can vote you out of the network if you violate the code of conduct. So being part of the platform means co-ownership and participation. This is a way for ethical newsrooms to monetize content without relying on producing click-inducing news. Next, I want to talk about open law. So currently we use law firms and solicitors to coordinate agreements between two parties, right? This process is very inefficient and costly. If you've bought a house, like I did 2 years ago, you'll have a sense of the length of time it takes and how much it costs to get a solicitor to draw up the paperwork for what is a very simple transaction, usually very standard paperwork as well. But they are somehow the trusted third party between two people agreeing to sell or buy an asset between each other. So using open law, lawyers and end users, people like you and me, can more efficiently complete all that transactional work in a much faster time, reducing cost. Open law can be used to register the ownership of valuable assets, houses, cars, artwork, IP. There are even legal contract templates available so that two parties, you and me, can complete a legal transaction, have it on the blockchain without a solicitor involved. Because it's on the blockchain, it can't be edited without the other party agreeing, and it's stored in a secure and private way. Of course, a contract is all well and good until somebody disputes it. So using blockchain voting mechanisms, open law is even creating a decentralized dispute resolution process as well. And the third example I want to talk about is identity. Information about us is necessary to operate in the real world. We've seen through Web 2 that our identity online is no longer static. It's dynamic, it's this rich set of data that captures our behaviors, social interactions, and transactions. That data is really valuable. But the data is owned by all these different entities in centralized servers, puts our data at risk. We've seen that happen many times where there's been accidents. We don't have visibility about how our data is used. So what algorithmic decisions are being made about us based on that profiling information? Our data is siloed to these organizations, so we can't port it easily from one to another. And some of these companies make money by selling our data. So when you sign up to a website today, you're usually asked to sign up with either email or Facebook, Google, Twitter, LinkedIn, whatever it might be. Do you know what information is being passed from those services to the website you're signing up to? You don't really own that data. Think about your medical records. Do you own those? What happens when you go to a hospital abroad? Can you accurately tell them your medical history? What about applying for jobs? You have a reputation and experience. You went to a certain university. How do you prove that to your employer easily? So Uport is a reputation and identity management tool. You own the data about yourself, and you decide what bits of it you want to give to different services. So perhaps you only want that website you're logging into to know how old you are, not also who all your friends are. It aims to make your data portable, so you can take it with you from one service to another. So let's say you've got glowing reviews on eBay as a seller, but you're going to move to Amazon. You could take your hard-earned reputation with you. It's cryptographically secured, so the data can't be stolen or abused. And if you want to monetize it, then you can. That's your choice. It's early days, but you can download this app now and begin building your own reputation within the system. Blockchain technology can solve for lots of problems in the world, and it is here to stay. So how is this going to affect the way we work together and the way we design products? Currently, most organizations operate a top-down hierarchy. A CEO at the top, we've talked about CEOs here today, and individual contributors at the bottom, right? This establishes control and also dictates the flow of information. It also controls the opportunities for collaboration. Problems with hierarchy arise when decisions are made on high at managerial stations far away from the situated awareness of the people actually doing the work and seeing what's happening. And some of those managers will often choose to silo information and seize opportunities to consolidate and grow power as they establish their own influence as well. With blockchain, we can have a decentralized autonomous organization, a DAO. Okay? A DAO has no central authority. It can work at a global scale, and rules are determined by all members of the organization through voting mechanisms. When you join the DAO, you enter an organization written in code, with agreements between each other for accountability stored on the blockchain that are transparent, building trust. At ConsenSys, we're experimenting with this model, a decentralized company. The purpose is to foster creative freedom whilst also having lines of accountability with one another. So our company structure looks like this. We've dispensed with line management, and we have signed agreements to be accountable to one another for the tasks that we do, and voting mechanisms in place for participation in the organization. So blockchain is going to give us new systems and shapes of organizations to build around and design for. And in terms of design, there are enormous challenges in the blockchain space right now. Because if participation is required for it to be a success, how do we get people to join our new systems in the first place? What are the incentive models needed to get people to participate in what I believe to be a fairer society and a fairer economy? We need people to care about their data in order to make behavior change. We need education about the benefits of blockchain, and we need to design great user experiences. And if you're a designer in the blockchain space, there are opportunities, loads of opportunities to work on the nitty-gritty UI of crypto wallets and token wallets, mobile apps, dashboards, experiences and exchanges across all types of industries and all types of users, including at enterprise level. So blockchain for enterprise is a really big thing at the minute. And then there's design at protocol level, systems design. Currently, and this is, in my view, one of the biggest problems and challenges we have to overcome, most blockchain initiatives are engineer-led. And this is problematic for a lot of reasons, because it's the protocol, that system, which determines the rules of participation. The rules are written in code. Very often, the end user's real need or their motivation for taking part in the first place is an afterthought. That's because design has not been included in the early decision-making stages. And the challenge right now is for all companies across the whole industry to attract users, to gain adoption. But the barriers to entry are very high for most normal people, because the people who are going to benefit most have not necessarily been consulted along the way. The actual onboarding journey to a decentralized service itself is the biggest obstacle to the success of Web 3.0 right now. So this is a journey map of the different steps it takes to someone right now to get started with a decentralized application. So there are 34 steps here and an additional 21, which I didn't fit on this page. And not only that, some of these steps take a long time to happen, 24 to 48 hours potentially. And additionally, because the whole blockchain industry is engineering-led, the default user in mind is a developer or other tech-savvy person. The points of friction on this journey are absolutely enormous. And it's becoming well recognized that user experience is a huge blocker to mass adoption for this technology. So this also has an impact on the possibility of blockchain's reach to fulfill its real potential. And one of the biggest opportunities for blockchain is to enable access to financial services for anyone in the world. The original blockchain, Bitcoin, was a cashless peer-to-peer payment system where you don't need a third party for me to send you some money. Allowing people to transfer value from one to another is the most simple application of blockchain. So why haven't we got there yet? Did you know that there are 2 billion people in the world who are unbanked? They don't have a bank account. The reasons for this are multiple. Their countries can't support institutional financing. There's a lack of infrastructure. Just banks don't want to be there. They might have crisis economies. And also, many people are denied a bank account because they don't have the right documentation. And that's global. So what does it feel like to not have a bank account? We've heard some tales already about that. It's hard for us to imagine people who have bank accounts here, the struggles of modern existence without one. So try applying for a university loan, sending money to someone outside of your local area, or building up any sort of savings. Try running a business without a bank account. Not having a bank account restricts people to day-to-day existence without access to the savings, credit, and loans opportunities that we all benefit from here today and take for granted. And lack of access to financial systems prevents an economy from growing, it suppresses development, and it's a blocker to equality as well. Decentralized finance is a major use case of blockchain. It has the potential to replace archaic banking systems, allowing anyone with a phone to have a current account. It'll avoid the problems of cross-border payments and the fees. It'll be instantaneous. And really importantly, because it's decentralized, no one body decides whether you can take part or not. Anyone can be part of the system. Imagine how many millions of people's lives could be improved when they have more equal access to global payments. Anyone could start a business and improve their quality of life. So if we rewind, I said that the first Bitcoin was mined in 2009. It's 2019 now, so 10 years. It's been around for 10 years. Why hasn't this magical future happened yet? The blocker is user experience. And at ConsenSys, myself and other design researchers and the product designers and design thinking strategists are making sure the teams we work with get out of their bubbles. Recent design research has involved speaking to people around the world in India, Nigeria, Brazil, Italy, the UK and the US, global, where that's the audience that we're trying to build a future for. But we need more expert designers in the blockchain sphere across the whole industry. Designers interested in complex problems, in systems thinking, in economics. We need them to be sparring partners with the technologists to make sure that when we build Web 3.0, we don't bake in the same poor practices, the biases, and all the problems that we currently see with Web 2.0. I do think that to be a designer working in blockchain, you have to sort of believe in a better future, and you have to be quite optimistic about this. But we also need skeptics and realists. We need people to push back, to ask questions, to ask, should we be doing this thing, not just can we do this thing? And if you're unconvinced that blockchain is here to stay, these are just some of the more traditional companies right now exploring blockchain. It's not going away. You may have even heard about Facebook's own cryptocurrency, which they're launching next year, called Libra Coin, which they aim to roll out in 2020. And that's going to allow people to make instant payments to one another across borders for all of their current users on Facebook and WhatsApp. Now, I'm no fan of Facebook, as you can probably tell, but this is going quite some way to banking the unbanked. And it's going to legitimize blockchain as well. And there's a lot of debate, and I'm happy to talk about this with people afterwards or in the questions as well, because it's been in the news quite a lot. A lot of debate about whether Facebook's Libra coin is actually a good thing or not. It's not really decentralized. The players in the network include PayPal, Uber, eBay, MasterCard, Visa, and a load of other centralized companies who have paid to be the players in that network. So I would say, on a positive note, expect big things to happen in the industry following the launch of their coin, but also be aware that Facebook will use your spending data to exploit you further. So as I wrap up my talk, I just want to recap on those attributes of blockchain again. So it allows us to trust one another without a third party to verify information for us. We can see what's going on in the network and everything that happened before. It's immutable. It can't be altered without the majority agreeing. It's distributed so that everyone has equal power within the system. There's no central body. And that makes it censorship-proof because of its immutable and distributed nature. No one actor can shut it down or restrict what other people see. I want to leave you with a last thought, a possibility of what could be achieved with this technology. Earlier, I mentioned the problem of being siloed in centralized systems and how this can stifle creativity and collaboration. What if we created a distributed autonomous organization, a DAO, to tackle climate change? What could be achieved if people from every country who wanted to do something about it but felt like it was hopeless could align with millions of other people like them in different countries, propose solutions, vote, make decisions within that decentralized system, coordinating worldwide strikes, lobbies, boycotts, and grassroots action, instead of waiting for our governments to do something? What would it mean to break down nation-state barriers? What could be achieved as one self-organized, motivated group of people with a mission? The decentralized future is just around the corner. Thank you.